So we're here to continue our discussions in chapter 39. So we're going to study about these continuous spectra. So as we have all know that, as we have discussed already, that when you heat, when, when you, when you have a lamp with a heated gas on it, or when you heated a gas and then it produces radiation or light, and that light will undergo into a lens and a slit and a diffraction grating, or this serves as the prism. The light, we can see emission line spectra where we can only see a light with certain wavelengths. The the emission spectrum is not continuous. The light of all colors are not present. So we have only and what we call emission line spectra. And we also know that no two atoms, no two elements have the same emission line spectrum. So in contrast, if you light if light comes from a light bulb with a heated filament, so usually this is a solid when it was heated, and this solid will produce a light. And if you disperse this light uh, to this process to a prism, then you will be able to see a continuous spectrum distribution of wavelengths rather than a line spectrum. So why is this so? So in this section, so we will study an idealized case of a continuous spectrum radiation from a hot, dense object. Okay, just as the line spectrum, surprisingly, this continuous spectrum will only be understood fully if we use the concept ideas of energy levels and photons. So in the same way that atoms has what we call same lines as absorption spectrum, atoms emission spectrum. So you can see the emission spectrum where only certain wavelengths are being what we call this one in the same way that the emission spectrum, if you look at the emission spectrum of hydrogen, so only light of certain wavelengths are being emitted. And when you the hydrogen atom also only absorbs a light of certain wavelengths. So since the ideal surface for emitting light with continuous spectrums, since if you have an ideal surface that that emits continuous spectrum, it is also it also expected that that surface will absorb all wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation. Such ideal surface is called a black body. It would appear perfectly black when illuminated. It would reflect no light at all. So say for example, you have here an apple. Okay. So that's an apple, for example. So you know that apple is red. So if you shine here a white light, so white light usually have many contains is this the superposition of all wavelengths. So most of the wavelengths or most of the light was being absorbed, and and it reflects the red light. Okay, that's the reason why uh you see that you see why apple is red. So since the it absorbs uh, electromagnetic radiation, what will happen to the temperature of this one? So the electron will start to what we call jiggles or oscillate. Okay, and what happens is that it radiates what we call this one. Uh, it 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 it, it starts to radiate. So, but before it radiates, the temperature will increase. Okay, the temperature will increase. Call this one. Temperature will increase, but as the temperature increase, the body will produce radiation to achieve a thermal, what we call this one, thermal equilibrium. Okay, that's why the temperature will not go to the infinity. Okay, so for a black body, suppose that this is black. So what black body means that suppose that this is a black surface or the black surface. Okay, so if you shine light through it, white light, so what will happen is it will no longer reflect red light, and it will look black. Okay. It will now look black. It will absorb all the color. So that's what we mean by a black body. Okay. So a black body uh, is an ideal surface. It would appear perfectly black when illuminated. Okay. It would appear perfectly black. Although there's red on it, but just think of it as perfectly black. It would reflect no light at all. But the continuous spectrum radiation that a black body emits is called the black body radiation. We call this one as the black body radiation. This one, that's the black body radiation. However, like perfectly frictionless inclined or massless rope, a perfectly black body does not exist, but it nonetheless a useful idealization. So the good approximation to a black body is a hollow box with a small aperture in one wall. Okay, so light enters to an aperture will eventually be absorbed by the walls of the box, so the box is nearly perfect absorber. Conversely, if we heat the box, the light that emanates from the aperture is nearly ideal black radiation with continuous spectrum. So you can see it will, if you hit this one, uh, it will it will emit radiation which has a continuous spectrum. So that's the good approximation of black body. So in 1900, many black body radiation had been studied extensively and three characteristics had been established. The first is that the total intensity I, that's the average rate of radiation of energy per unit surface. Is it the average rate? I mean, it could be the average rate of radiation of energy per unit surface area or average power per unit area emitted from the surface of an ideal radiator is proportional to the fourth power of the absolute temperature. So meaning if you hit a black body, so the intensity is is proportional to the fourth power of the absolute temperature. So this equation is called Stefan Boltzmann law for a black body, where the intensity of the radiation from the black body is equal to the Stefan Boltzmann's constant times the absolute temperature of the black body. Okay. Second is that intensity is not uniformly distributed over the wavelengths. So its distribution can be measured and described by the intensity per unit wavelength interval. We call that one as the spectral emittance. So in figure 39.32 shows the measured spectral emittance for a black body radiation at different temperature. So, for example, at low temperature, we can see here that at at 1250 Kelvin. So at low temperature, this is the distribution, okay, of the intensity per unit wavelength or the spectral emittance. This one at in the middle at 17,000 1750 Kelvin. So we have here at 200 Kelvin. So this is the, so we can see here that there are peaks on the distribution. So this is what are the, this is the, what looks like for the distribution for black body, spectral emittance of a black body distribution at different temperatures. Okay. So what does it mean? So for example, stars are are also considered black body. Okay, so the reason why you can see that the stars have many colors, s- s- some appear to be blue and black, and scientists know that if it appears red, they know that these stars are low temperature. It appears blue, this star is high temperature. So how did they know that? Is that they just look at the spectral emittance of a star. So at low temperature star emits more red light than blue light. So this is the visible spectrum of light. So this is the wavelength over the spectral emittance versus the spectral emittance. So you can see here that the distribution here only includes uh, the or the visible spectrum, the one that you can see. So the other wavelengths is you cannot longer see that in your visible eye. So in this at low temperature star, it emits actually red light. So because in the graph it includes this one red lights. The most dominant is the red light. At middle temperature star, it emits comparable amount of all visible wavelengths. So the mid temperature stars looks like this, uh, emits comparable amounts of all wavelengths. So it could look white. So the high temperature star emits more blue light. So as you can see this distribution here. So yeah, it emits actually blue. It looks like blue. So if you can see here, that's the distribution. Okay, okay. This one are this one is just this area here is blue. Okay. So that's the reason why since the star is a black body, when you hit the star at very high temperature, it looks blue. So this is the application of the spectral emittance for a black body. That's the second observation that a characteristic that they have established. So if you can see here that there are peaks in the distribution, so each has a peak wavelength. It has a peak wavelength per temperature at which the emitted intensity per wavelength interval is the largest. So experiment shows that this wavelength is inversely proportional to T, temperature. So the product is constant and the equal to 2 times 2.90 times 10 to the negative 3. So this should be like this, negative 3 meter per Kelvin. So we call this one is as the wind displacement law for a black body. The peak wavelength in the spectral emittance curve times the absolute temperature of a black body is equal to this constant 2.90 times 10 to the negative 3 meters per Kelvin. So the third experiment show that the shape of the distribution of this function is the same for all temperatures. So the shape is always like this. That's the shape of the distribution function. So an application, just like we said about the stars, star colors, and the Planck radiation law. Okay, stars with radiation very similar to that of a black body have a broad range of surface temperature from a lower 2500 Kelvin to a higher 3000 Kelvin. The wind displacement law and the shape of the the Planck spectral emittance curve explain why these stars have different colors. So we explained it already. So an early attempt, a classical attempt to explain the black body radiation is made by the scientists Rayleigh and Jeans, or we call this one the Rayleigh-Jeans law, where the spectral emittance is equal to 2 pi times the speed of light and a constant k times temperature over the fourth power of the wavelength. However, at very large wavelength, it agrees with the distribution. But at low wavelengths, at short wavelengths, there is a major disagreement with the distribution experiment. We call this so here using this Rayleigh-Jeans law, what happened is that the intensity goes to infinity. We call this one as the catastrophe, but ultraviolet catastrophe. Yes. So clearly, something is wrong about this uh, formula. So, a scientist called Max Planck and his quantum hypothesis assumed that a cavity radiation from the atomic oscillations in the cavity walls. He made two assumptions about the nature of the oscillators. Okay, so if you remember the what we draw an apple, okay, and it has an electrons, and if it after the electromagnetic radiation is observed, the electrons jiggle. Okay, so Planck said that the energy of an oscillator or the energy that's being absorbed by this electron that jiggles or oscillates can only have certain discrete values, which is equal to the energy of that is equal to the n, the quantum number n, the frequency of the oscillator f, and the Planck's constant. Okay. So meaning energy is quantized. So meaning it's like a ladder like this. Okay. N is equal to 1, N is equal to 2, and N is equal to so on 3. Okay, it's like a ladder. So no value between the this one. There's no intermediate value. It could be this one or this one. We call that one each energy value corresponds to a quantum state. So his assumptions that oscillator emits or absorbs energy when making a transition from one quantum state to another, which is equal to HF. Okay, so if the oscillator emit or absorb energy, make a transition from one constant state to another. Okay, so these are the 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 diagram that shows the quantized energy levels and allowed transitions at short wavelengths, large energy separation at short wavelengths, okay, low probability of excited states, and few downward transition. Okay, so we're not gonna explain this anymore. So then Planck's arrive what we to equation where we call this one is the Planck's radiation law. This is the Planck generated a theoretical expression for the intensity distribution of a black body. So this equation now agrees with the experimental result. It avoids the Rayleigh-Jeans ultraviolet violet catastrophe. catastrophe. Okay. So this is equal to the fifth power of the wavelength. We have here the value of exponent e to the power of hc over lambda kt minus 1. Okay. So surprisingly, at long wavelengths, Planck's equation reduced to Rayleigh-Jean's law. Although Rayleigh-Jean's law is not cannot will go to what we call catastrophe, ultraviolet catastrophe at small wavelengths. This equation here agrees with the experimental result distribution. So at short wavelengths, it predicts an exponential decrease in intensity with decreasing wavelength. So this is an agreement with the experimental result. And at long wavelengths also, it agrees with the Rayleigh-Jean's law. So the total power radiated, if you do an integral of the spectral emittance up to the infinity, we can see that the Stefan Boltzmann law was being derived through this equation, from this equation, okay, which is the the intensity is equal to the this constant times the fourth power of the temperature. Also, the at peak distribution, the most probable wavelength, if you do derive this one, so the winds this it also has a winds displacement law where this one, the peak wavelength is equal to this one, 2.90 times 10 to the 3, which is equal to the experiment. Okay. So let's apply this to an example. So a good approximation, the sun's to a good approximation, the sun's surface is a black body with a surface temperature of 5,800 Kelvin. So we are ignoring the absorption produced by the sun's atmosphere shown in figure 39.9. At what wavelength does the sun emit most strongly? What is the total radiated power per unit area? So, unsa daw kuno ang wavelength? What wavelength does the sun emits most strongly? So, s- from we call this one from a wind displacement law. So we know that the wavelength, the peak times the temperature is equal to 2.90 times 10 to the negative 3 meter per Kelvin. So if we multiply both sides by 1 over temperature, the peak wavelength the sun emits most strongly is equal to 2.90 times 10 to the 3 Kelvin over the approximate value of the temperature Kelvin. We can this one. So the peak wavelength would be around 500 nanometer. Okay. So because our result is 0.5 times 10 to the 6 negative 6 meter. Okay. That's for letter A. For letter B, what's the total radiated power per unit surface? So power per unit surface area is just actually the intensity, which is we know that the intensity is equal to this constant here to the fourth power of the temperature. So here, the constant is actually 5.67 times 10 to the 8 watt per meter squared times Kelvin to the fourth times the 5,800 Kelvin. So we can so the intensity I is around 6.42 times 10 to the 7. So we have here to the fourth watt per meter squared. So because you can cancel this out, this one, the unit. So this is the intensity for letter B. Okay. Find the power per unit area radiated from the sun's surface in the wavelength ranges from 600 to 605 nanometer. Okay. So the change of wavelength, if we calculate this one, is 605.0 nanometer minus 600.0 nanometer is actually equal to 5.0 nanometer. To find the power per unit area radiated from the sun's surface. Okay. So this question concerns the power emitted by the black body over a narrow range of wavelength. So it involves the spectral emittance. Okay, spectral wavelength. Given the Planck radiation law, so what is the Planck's radiation law? So it gives us this. If we look at the Planck's radiation law, the spectral emittance is equal to 2 pi h c squared over to the fifth e to the h c over lambda kt minus 1. This requires that we find the area under the spectral emittance curve, okay, between 6.00 to 6.0005 nanometer. So we'll approximate this area as the product of the height of the curve at the median and the width of the interval, which is this is the width of the interval. So we're going to find the median from the example, and we use the temperature T is equal to 5800 Kelvin. Okay. So first we're going to obtain the height of the emittance curve at the wavelength 602.5 nanometer. Okay, to obtain the wavelength, we first evaluate the quantity, which is Hc over kT. Let's first evaluate this one. Hc over kT. So let's evaluate this one. So Hc over lambda kT, kT. So we're going to obtain the height of the emittance curve at this wavelength first. This wavelength. So maybe we should draw this one. Okay. So we have, for example, we have 600 nanometer, and we have here the 605. So the graph looks like this. It should look like that. Or So maybe this one, uh, like that. So H over lambda, so from the equations, uh, 6.626 times 10 to the negative 34 joules per second times 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second over the wavelength. So let's first, over this wavelength, 6 point. So, uh, you really find the height. So the median here is 60. So 60 at 2.5 nanometer. Okay. So to obtain the height, okay, so to obtain the height, so we have the height is given by this one, okay, at this median, okay, to obtain the height, we find that to obtain that one, the height of the distribution, you need to find first, since given this law, need to find first this one, okay, so 6.0, so we're gonna use this one, the median, 6.025 nanometer, but then this is times 10 to the 9, KT, what is the constant K? 1 point joules per Kelvin, and the temperature is 5,800 K. So this is actually 4.116, this one. And to find the height, this spectral limitance here, so using this formula, 2 times pi times 6.626 negative 34 joules per second. What else? Okay. The square of the speed of light over, the fifth of the wavelength, 6.025. So by the way, this is 6.025, and if you use actually, 6 nanometer 602, you're gonna use this one, 602.5 times 10 to the negative 9. Okay. 602.5 times 10 to the negative 9 on meter. So this is actually this one, nanometer. So the book uses 6.025 times 10 to the negative 7 meter. But if you use the nanometer, if you use this one, it's the nanometer. Then e to the 4.116 minus 1. And we found that the height of the curve is 7.81 times 10 to the 13 per meter squared. So this is the value, around 7.8 times 10 to the meter squared. Okay. So the intensity in the five ranges from, okay, if you want to find the intensity from this one to this one, So from the intensity of this one from this range, so we can do that by multiplying the spectral emittance times the that range, the change of wavelength. So we have 7.881 times 10 to the 13 per meter cube times, so the interval is actually 5.0 times 10 to the negative 9 meter. So the what is this? The intensity I is around 3.9 times 10 to the 5 meter squared, or is equal to 0.39 megawatt per meter squared. So in part B in the previous example, found the power radiated per unit area by the sun of all wavelengths as 64. Okay, 64.42 megawatts per meter squared. Here we found that the power radiated per unit area in the wavelength ranges from this one to this one is 0.39 megawatt. So this is about the 0.6% of the total. So the Planck's radiation law gives us the spectral emittance power per unit area per unit wavelength for an ideal black body, and to find the power per unit area emitted over a range of wavelengths integrated over that range. So that's why the use of this Planck's radiation law. So now we are in the Heisenberg uncertainty principles for particles. So this is the uncertainty principle revisited. Okay, so the discovery of the wave nature of matter focused us to reevaluate the kinematic language we use to describe the position of motions of the particle. In classical Newtonian mechanics, we think of a particle as a point. We describe its location and state of motion in any instant in three spatial coordinates and three components of velocity. But because matter is also have a wave aspect, as we have discussed already, when we look at the behavior of a small enough scale comparable to the de Broglie wavelength of a particle, we can no longer use the Newtonian description. Certainly no Newtonian particle would undergo diffraction like electrons do in 13.9. So, to demonstrate just how Newtonian the behavior of the matter can be, let's look at the experiment involving the two-slit interference of electrons. We aim an electron beam. So we aim an electron beam at two parallel slits. Okay, slits 1 and slit 2, as we did for the light in section 38.4. Electrons experiment has to be done in a vacuum so the electrons don't collide in the molecules. So take note of that. So what kind of pattern appears in the detector on the other side of the slit? Okay, so this is our result. Answer is exactly the same kind interference pattern as we saw for the photons in 38.4. Okay, so this uncertainty principle was made using photons, and this is the result. And now using the electrons, and then we have this pattern here. The intensity is at largest in this part, just like photons. So moreover, the principle of complementarity, which we introduced in 38.4, tell us that we cannot apply the wave and particle models simultaneously to describe any single element of this experiment. Thus, we cannot predict exactly where the pattern of a wave phenomenon, any individual electron, a particle, will land. We can ask which slit an individual electron passes through. Okay. If we try to look at where the electrons are going by shining a light on them, that is, by scattering photons of them, the electrons would recoil, which would modify their motion so that the two slit interference pattern would not appear. So the Heisenberg uncertainty principles for matter, just like electrons and photons, show the same behavior in two slit interference experiment. Electrons and other forms of matter obey the same Heisenberg uncertainty principle as photons do. So this is the Heisenberg uncertainty principle for positions and momentum. So the same uncertainty considerations apply to photons, also apply to particles such as electron. The uncertainty energy in the energy of the state that is occupied by the time is given by this equation. The uncertainty principle for energy and time interval. So this applies for photons and surprisingly, this also principle applies for electrons. This proves that an electron, which is viewed from the classical mechanics as particle, now has indeed a wave characteristic. So here we have an example for the uncertainty principle, position and momentum. So again, an electron is confined within a region of with 5.000 times 10 to the negative 11 meters. This is roughly the Bohr radius. Estimate the minimum uncertainty in the x component of the electron's momentum. What is the kinetic energy of an electron with this magnitude and momentum? And then express your answer in both joules and electron volts. So to answer the question, so note that the uncertainty principle is given by this equation. The uncertainty times the uncertainty of the momentum is greater than equal to h bar over 2. So that's the question. And and to answer this one, so take note that 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 to find the to find the to estimate the maximum uncertainty in the x component of the momentum. So it will be given by this using your mathematics. It's equal to h bar over 2 times uh, the uncertainty along the position. Okay, so we have h bar. The value of h bar is 1.055 times 10 to the negative 34 joules per second over 2 times the width is 5.000 times 10 to the negative 11 meters. So it will give us 1.00055 times 10 to the negative 24 joules per second per meter. Joules, joules times seconds per meter. Okay. So, or this is equally 1.055. The unit, this one, times 10 to the negative 24 kilograms meters per second. Uh, what is the kinetic energy of an electron with this magnitude of momentum? What's the So if you have this momentum, what is the kinetic energy? So take note that the kinetic energy of the electron, v squared, or we can put it like this, v squared over 2m. So given this one, we can estimate the kinetic energy of electron given this magnitude of momentum is equal to, and express this one in joules and electron volts. So this is just 1.0. Okay, this is 0.55, 1.055 negative 24 kilograms meters per second squared, and over 2 times the mass of the electron. 2 times 10.11 times 10 to the negative 31 kilograms. So this will give us this will give us 6.11 times 10 to the negative 19 joules, or this is 3.81 evolts if you convert that one into evolts. So another example class about the uncertainty principle, energy and time. So suppose you have a sodium atom. You have a sodium atom in one of the states labeled as the lowest excited levels. In figure 13.19a remains in that state of an average of 1.6 to the power of negative 8 seconds before it makes a transition to the ground, emitting a photon of wavelength 589.0 nanometer and energy 2.015 eVolt. What is the uncertainty energy of that excited state? Let's answer that first. So the uncertainty E is equal to h bar over 2 times the uncertainty of time. So we have given 1.005 1.055 times 10 to the negative 34 joules per second over 2 times 1.6 times 10 to the negative 8 seconds. So we will get 3.3 joules, which is equal to 2.1 times 10 to the negative 8 evolts. Okay. So that's the uncertainty in energy of that excited state. So what is the wavelength spread of the corresponding spectral line? So what is the wavelength of the corresponding spectral line? Okay. So the atom remains in the ground state indefinitely, so that the state has no associated energy and uncertainty. So the fractional uncertainty of the photon energy is therefore, if you want to find the fraction E, and this is equal to 2.1 times 10 to the negative 8 evolts over 2.105 evolts. So you have 1.0 times 10 to the negative 8. So you can use some sample calculations and the relationship E. So E is equal to hc over lambda. Okay. To show that the change of lambda over the lambda is equal to the change of E over E. So so the corresponding spread in the length or width of the spectral line is approximately the change of the wavelength is approximately the wavelength, the change of E over E. So that's why we get this one. So so around uh 589.0 nanometer, okay, times 1.0 times 10 to the negative 8. So we have around 0.0, 0.000059. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nanometer. So those are the whole lesson for the chapter 39. So in summary, we discussed the Broglie waves and the electron diffraction, the nuclear atom, the line spectra and the energy levels, the Bohr model, the laser, the black body radiation, and the Heisenberg uncertainty principle.